You can wait a little bit. All right.
All
Now
right.
let's go. We're good.
All right. We're gonna
Go
go.
ahead. Get it going
Yo,
for us.
what? Yo, what is going on? Welcome to the number one podcast that you got to be listening to if you're wanting to blow up your health, your wealth, and your relationship goals. It's Pod-A, and today we're talking about failure, discomfort, and giving up. The same thing, but also different as well. Kevin, what's going on, my man? How you doing this morning?
Great. I mean everything. I feel like every time I'm on one of these episodes, I'm like making an adjustment to my office and everything. But no, I feel good. I'm excited as always. Like every time I think about this podcast, it makes me happy that literally we're episode 14.
I
I
know,
was looking
right?
at some podcasts the other day, and like everybody usually stops around like episode 25 to 30, and they never continue their podcasting dreams and just like or have like the consistency or whatever it is, right? Like we're on here every Monday, and we just introduced our first Friday last week. um so that's exciting to me, that it's like consistent versus like some other people. They're just like, yeah, we're gonna do a podcast, but then it's like I don't know, they're not consistent with it, and they're also not consistent with the times. And people like, that was my issue before, was it was
Mhm.
like, we're gonna do it at 3 o'clock one day, and then another day we'll do it at 1, and then one day we're gonna do it at 6, and it just like makes things real difficult.
Well, and then it's just hard to get in the rhythm of wanting to do it because then you're just like, oh, okay, I just don't want to do this. And you're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah, yeah,
think of things, and now
yep,
just more of a drag than anything. But I think that actually ties into a lot of what we're going to be talking about here today, where like a lot of people tend to fall off. It could be due to multiple different reasons, but I think disorganization is definitely one of them, where you get like that
yeah,
emotional kind of a drainage. But then I definitely think the discomfort definitely starts kicking in too, like where people like
100%.
they're just starting their podcast. Like, so I know, like for our first couple podcasts, like we had shit views and like there wasn't a lot of, but then it starts up. So same kind of thing. It's like consistently getting that discomfort of going through like that inconsistency where like, you're not getting a lot of views. You're like starting to think like, should I be doing this? And you start thinking that you're a failure with it, and you just start getting like that mindset, like, okay, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. Now this isn't working, this isn't working, and then eventually you just give up. And I
Yeah.
think that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here today. Where whether you're building a business, starting a podcast,
Hmm.
trying to achieve whatever goal it is in your jobs, in your relationships, or even in your health and fitness journeys, this discomfort of these unfamiliar areas is going to be where a lot of people tend to fall off, because obviously
Yeah.
being uncomfortable is not something we enjoy doing, but also that discomfort is also where we're trying to navigate an unfamiliar area. And when we can't
Hmm.
navigate it and deal with the emotional impacts that come with it, we start falling into these potholes, and then we
And
can't
when
see
we
what's
just give
ahead
up.
of us.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we can't see what's
I
ahead
mean,
of
it
us, what
goes. It
mistakes
literally
we're
goes with
making.
the same thing of the podcast. Like, I feel like that's where people really fall off. That I've noticed is like they don't get the views. Like, do we have 100 views every single time? Are we like popular streamers? No, but we can be. I think we consistently keep going with this, and we very much can be.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, the excitement at the beginning for the few episodes. Like I was talking to a coach the other day, and her boyfriend, I think is who it was, her and her boyfriend, fiance, they had a podcast, and I went and checked it out. They only had 8 episodes, and the episodes are very spread out. And I think when people do that, they're excited. Like, we're gonna start a podcast. We're gonna start like a couples podcast, and we're gonna give all of our energy into like this, and we're gonna be like overhyped about it. And then when you don't get people to listen, you run out of things to talk about. Not because you don't have things to talk about with your spouse. It's just you run out of things to talk about because your idea is that you're gonna come up with things to talk about for entertaining other people, but there's nobody there, so then you don't know what to talk about. And then it's like, now you have the emotion of being uncomfortable with the fact that nobody's listening or whatever the case is, right? And then you give up. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that I actually brought it up, the podcast thing, and then of course it kind of ties in to the topic for the day. This
That was
does tie
actually
into the
not even planned. That
that
wasn't
was not,
planned
yeah,
at
that
all.
wasn't planned at all. That wasn't planned at
Yeah,
all. So
like I
that's
wrote this
perfect.
up consistently. Like I just wrote this up randomly this morning, and then I sent it off to Kevin, and then like it just literally just went into that, and I was like, oh, that's actually
Yeah,
a really
so
really good point.
a lot of people do quit things that
Mhm.
they're like really passionate about. And I was listening to a few other things and looking at a few other creators, more so in like a different space other than fitness. And the big thing that they're looking for is like volume. And I think we're like pushing out volume with this. Like we got 14
Mhm.
episodes now, we're doing twice a week, right? um Versus like some people that I know have been doing a podcast for the past year or so. They're in, inching closer to the hundreds, right, to hit that 100 mark. And we're about to inch, like we're gonna catch up real fast. Like
Well, and
literally
I
in the next 4 months, we'll be inching towards that 100. I think that's awesome.
oh hell yeah.
Into the whole like obviously that discomfort,
The failure that we can see and then eventually leads to giving up, but that ties into a lot of things that we see just in day-to-day life. But like I think the important thing that
Yeah.
we need to really really focus on here, and then we'll tie this into how this applies to you, your business, your healthy fitness, whatever the case it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think it's very important to remember that a lot of these things that you're going to feel with discomfort, failure, and wanting to give up is going to be that they're going to be very similar in the way but also going to be very different. So
Yeah.
they're going to have the same emotional feel. It's going to be generally based around fear. Like, let's be honest, like it's always the unknown fear. They're going to work fear if you taking this step is actually going to pan out the way you want. The fear of just taking this journey or taking this action towards changing your life is going to work. So yeah, there is that fear of that unknown
Yep.
environment, but then there's also the uncomfortable positions that we're put into. So no matter what you're trying to accomplish, you're always going to be put into an uncomfortable position. So
Yep.
whether that's you getting your first call booked for your first client, and you're getting on your first sales call, and you're in a very uncomfortable position. If you are a health and fitness client and you are getting started your health and fitness journey, putting the trust in someone else and then investing in yourself can be a super super scary thing, because you don't know if it's going to work. You've tried this before and failed. You don't want to waste money, because with the economy right now it's hard to
Yep.
like really get ahead. So
Yep.
there's all these different things, but a lot of these things in terms of like discomfort and fear is that they're going to be based around a very negative place that we fall into.
Hmm.
And we need to understand the difference between these, because these aren't negative things. These can
No.
be very positive things, but it's also the way you look at it and how you're getting affected by it.
Yep. Yep.
You know,
100%.
so like realistically, like, wait, what do these things mean? So Kevin, if someone says like they're in a like an uncomfortable position, or they're going through discomfort right now, like what does that really mean? Like what is discomfort?
So to me, whenever somebody brings up discomfort, it's just out of routine. Like out of routine is pretty much the best way. Like I like to make things in simple terms for everybody to kind of understand. Like when you're out of a routine, like everybody's always like, I gotta get back into my routine. I gotta get back into my routine. The reason why you want to get back into your routine is because you know that things are out of whack.
Yeah.
Um, and things being out of whack don't always have to be bad, right? Um, Sometimes being out of routine and being uncomfortable can sometimes be a good thing. You might be learning a valuable lesson. You may be diving into, um, I guess, a new time in your life. Like I read I was watching a Mike Tyson clip the other day, and I'm gonna tie this into this like discomfort thing. And it was one of the last times he fought, and he said that he lost. He's like, I'm not built for this any longer. He's like, I don't have the desire to fight anymore. I'm not that animal anymore any longer. It's not who I am. And somebody asked, and they were like, so why did you do this? He's like, honestly, I'm just here to pay my bills. he goes he goes, did you know you were not going to perform well coming into the fight? And that's when he answered the bills thing. And he's like, I just I'm no longer the same person I used to be when I'm 20. And then I read the comments, and somebody put, I actually took a screenshot, and it was a Muhammad Ali um saying, and he goes, "If a man at 50 is the same man he was at 20, he's wasted 30 years of his life." Muhammad Ali. So, and I think it ties in exactly to this topic today, is that you cannot continue being the same person you were years ago. It doesn't have to be 30, but you cannot continue being the same person. You have to go through discomforts and building new routines and getting out of old routines, so that way you can grow. Okay. And even if you leave those routines, it's not like we're gonna get into here in a second, quitting. Okay, in the term of like fuck everything. It's quitting the things that you know are no longer serving you.
Mhm.
Clip that shit. Clip that shit right now. I need that shit
Well,
on Instagram.
yes, dead ass. But like, and it's funny you brought up Mike Tyson because I was watching. I think it was on Disney or whatever,
Oh
the
man.
Mike Tyson documentary, and he would like, even though like he was like he's saying that, but then also look at the other discomfort that he had to go through. Like he went through a
Yeah.
very traumatic childhood growing up.
Yeah.
Very like he was homeless, sleeping in abandoned shelters and stuff. Then
Yeah.
obviously did stupid shit, got himself put in prison. But then that's
Yeah.
also where he was like he was an overweight kid, got picked on a lot, his ass kicked a lot, and
Yeah.
like kind of like me, like you got picked on for how you looked on the outside, so you end up fighting back. Now he was in I think he was in juvie or whatever when he really started.
Yeah. He,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, he was in juvie because then he went to because he's the baddest dude there because he beat the shit out of everyone, and then he
Yeah.
went and he confronted the boxing instructor there, and the boxing instructor fucked him up, but then basically
And then
told
took
him
him under
like,
his wing. Right.
well, yeah, but told me like he's not going to train him because he's a piece of shit, and he's always going to be a piece of
Yep.
shit. So
Yep.
being put in those discomfortable situations, but then also as well when he finally transitioned into becoming a fighter, the amount of discomfort that he had to go through with training, being regimented, being organized, being disciplined, being under
Mm-hmm.
control. These were things that he was not used to, and he struggled a lot with, which they had to break out of him. But again, it was navigating those uncomfortable areas of unfamiliarity so that way you can now progress into a place of comfort to where you can now excel in that area. That is the biggest thing where a lot of people on their
Mm-hmm.
health and fitness journeys, building their businesses, entrepreneurs are all going to, like a majority of them fail, is because they will not be consistent with dealing with the emotional stresses and the emotional pressures of going through those discomfortable areas in order to make it comfortable. So then that's
Yeah.
also where when you're going through these uncomfortable areas and those moments of discomfort, that's where you're going to hit failure. Failure is inevitable. You are going to fail at everything you fucking do. You are going to fail at least once, twice, three times. Just like riding a bike, you got on the bike, you got on, fell left, got back on, fell the right, got back on, rode straight. Hopefully, you didn't hit a tree like I did.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I am the way I am. But anyway, so failure is only a negative thing when you look at the thing that you did wrong, but then you don't make
Mm.
the corrections, the manipulations, the adaptations, so that way you can change whatever action. And again, might not even have to change the
Yeah.
action you did by that much. Like that could have
Might
been
just
just a
be a small
slight
tweak.
variation that you could have done and you would have succeeded. But you failed in that one action that you took in order to accomplish, like, okay, fine, you took a jump, tried to grab a bar, you missed it and you fell on the gravel, and now you got to go get
I'll
up and
put
do it
this in
again.
perspective too. It's like, to that small like adjustment. Let's consider like somebody working a 9 to 5, right? I know
Yeah.
that we preach a lot of entrepreneurship here, guys, but truthfully, like a lot of you will always remain in a 9 to 5, and that's okay. A lot of you have really good careers in that, and I'm not shitting on that. But let's just take your 9 to 5 for example. Let's say you go to an office where you have to be somewhere specifically. Let's say that you're the person um, that's consistently arriving at 9 o'clock, and you have to start at 9. And your manager's always there at 8:30. Let's say that instead of arriving at 9, you got there at 8:30, the same time as your manager. That small 30-minute tweak because you decided to wake up 30 minutes early, and everyone else got there at 8:50, 8:55, maybe 9 o'clock with you, and you decided to get there at 8:30 every time. And let's say your manager actually doesn't do anything for the first 10, 15 minutes he's there other than drink a coffee. And let's say you do this for 6 months to a year. Do you think you're probably going to become decent friends with your manager on like some non-work related shit because you give this fucking person 10, 15 minutes of your life every day? You have no reason to get there at 8:30. You can start your job. You're not going to get fired for getting there on time at 9. But what if eventually the company grows, the manager has to step down or something, and maybe after so much time of like doing your job well, and you have a friendship sprinkle in there as well, you may be the person that gets recommended by that manager that's either leaving, got promoted to another position, or is doing whatever else. Now you're the first person that comes to mind. And that's a small tweak that you didn't have to go learn more things. You didn't have to go to college again. I just feel like those things are important, right? To have that like connection, that network with that man. And that's just an example. I mean, there's probably so many examples that you could throw.
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
throwing that out as an example, right? Where it is a
Yeah,
small
small
tweak,
variation.
small variation is 30 minutes of your time.
Yeah, so
Right.
if you look at it, then so kind of go a little bit deeper into that. So let's say that you're there at 9 o'clock each time, and the manager's there at 8:30. Now, essentially, when you are the one that's going to be heading there early, going there to do your shit, what it's going to now do is, like Kevin said, it's going to develop that relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
what it's also going to do is that small little variation change. Who knows? You could have not gotten the promotion just based on the pure fact it was not that you were not qualified enough. It's not that you weren't working hard enough. It was maybe for that specific
Looking for was the person
who was actually willing to show up and do something that
Yeah.
they needed to do, or just showing up earlier to maybe take something on that came up, or whatever the case is. When they're
Or just
growing, when
know
they're
that,
scaling,
that you even want something, because
yeah.
if you're only buried in your cubicle, if you're only buried in your work, and you don't communicate your desire to grow with somebody, then no one's ever going to know. No one's ever going to recommend
And
you.
that could be your failure, that you failed to take that action
Yeah.
of just showing up to say, yo, Kevin, you know what, I heard that you might be getting that promotion, dude. I love that. So what's going on with this? Like, how can I put myself in a position where I can be in line for that promotion?
Yeah.
Do you not think saying that one thing, and again, like the failures that we do are the small things that we don't do in those areas of discomfort? So if
Mhm.
you're going through an area of discomfort, so a lot of those, let's say, online coaches right now, they're going through a lot of areas of discomfort right now. They're having to go online, they're having to go market themselves, create content, talk on camera, all these things. And they don't want to even just ask, like, hey, I want to get to where you are. What were some things that you did?
Mhm.
That's something I never hear anyone saying. And every time I've worked with a coach, I'm like, have you ever asked like
Yeah,
someone like
I was
what they did?
you
And they
know
were
what?
like, no,
That's so
I've never
crazy.
asked. It's like, but why? Am I
That's so
like
crazy. I was literally listening to a podcast this morning about that. Man, so many things are aligning today.
dude, what the
Um,
hell? I'm liking
I
this. I'm
was
liking
listening
this.
to become a creator podcast. It's let me just kind of bring it up real quick. Yeah, become a creator podcast. He's a streamer. His name is Stone Mountain. He plays video games. But
Yeah, no, I know Stone. Like, I've actually chatted with him myself. Me and him talked about
re-
content for a little bit. Yeah, yeah, no,
yeah,
he's a
so
young kid, Stone. Yeah, no, I
yeah, no,
actually
well, he's
he
older
followed each other.
now. He's
Oh, he's an
older
older
now.
kid
So
now. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
he
he's our
just
age. He's our
graduated.
age. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I was thinking.
no, no.
Okay, now I was thinking of a different Stone. Then never mind.
So this is Stone Mountain 64. So Stone Mountain 64, he plays video games. He's a big streamer, but they have this podcast, and he was talking about um, how some big streamers, like obviously at this point in time, we are streamers. Like we're on Facebook literally every week. We're on YouTube now. I'm going to consider us streamers. We're content creators, true and true.
Yeah, I'll
Period.
give that.
Especially you're definitely a content creator more than I am, for sure. I think I like the long format more than anything, and you enjoy the short format. So either way,
But
there's
it is a little bit different though, because like
it's
your
different.
long format is very valuable. Where like mine, like I really try to pull people in with my content, and then like when I go live, that's where I really like show a
But
lot
either
of
way,
authority. Yeah,
content creators nonetheless. Content
yeah.
creators nonetheless. And one thing he brought up, if you guys, do you know who Mr. Beast is? Do you know who that is? Okay, so he's a guy, really cool streamer, super rich, based off the content he creates. And what he does is that he puts people through like little good like prank games, but not like the pranks where it's like making people feel stupid at the store, like everybody's doing right now, but like pranks where he always rewards everybody at the end. So like he's been going to like Walmarts and things like that, and says, would you want $1,000 right now, or would you want to give $10,000 to a person in the store right now? And then if the person says, I'll give $10,000 to a person in the store, he's like, all right, cool. You got 10 seconds. He makes people run, gives a random person $10,000, is like, here. And then is like, how do you feel? You just gave this person $10,000. He's like, yeah, I feel great. He's like, well, we have a gift for you. You're also going to get $10,000. And then they literally open up a suitcase and they give them $10,000. The people who took the $1,000 missed out on $9,000. So those are the things. So what they were talking about is like some of these streamers that like Stone, Nick Merckx. I'm sure you know Nick Merckx. I'm sure you know Tim the Tapman and all those guys. Okay. So those guys, they were talking about on becoming a creator, like, why don't people ask more of the people who are doing well in the content creating space and are wanting to like go into the entrepreneur space? Like, why don't we ask more of that? Like, why don't we go and reach out to Corey, reach out to Kevin, or reach out to whoever, right? You know, for example, we talk about my best friend Sammy. He's got an ice cream place, he's got Level Up and all. Like, why don't people reach out and ask, like, hey, how did you go about this? Right? How did you go about this? And people just don't. I think it's also part of the discomfort is like, but it's okay. It's okay. Because no one, if somebody reached out to me and I looked at their profile, I wouldn't come back and say, hey, yo, you're a piece of dog shit. This looks terrible. Right?
It's trash.
This is trash. Like, I'm never going to say that.
No.
Right? So why not ask? Why not ask? You know what I mean? Like, how did you, what led this to be so popular? What do you feel like made this get, you know, this amount of views? Like, what led you to be comfortable with doing, like, for you, what led you to become comfortable with being silly in the gym? Now, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's actually a good question. Like, for everybody, like, what led you? This is my question now. Is like, what led you to be comfortable in the gym with doing silly videos where most people don't even like recording themselves quietly in a corner doing an RDL?
That is very true. And then like some of the shit I do is very outlandish. I think it was like the fact that I just I pushed myself to the point where I just really just stopped giving a fuck, because no matter what I did, whether it was good, whether it was funny, whether it was controversial or whatever, there was always someone that was going to say some stupid shit.
Yeah.
And like at the end of the day, like, fuck, whatever. I kind of got to the point where, and again, like this kind of goes into personal life too, like just with going through a lot of the shit I did, you're not going to appease everyone. And then at the end of the day too, those people that for some reason you care so much about those opinions, they're not always going to be there for the rest of your life anyways. So like, why would you what's the word? No, I want to say dilute, but that's not. Why
dilute?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why it was on the tip of my tongue. Couldn't say it.
Like water.
Yeah. Why would you dilute your personality and who you are?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like people like me for me. Like I have a solid group of friends around me. I have lots of people that really enjoy the things I do, and because it's valuable to them. I'm not just speaking bullshit. So that at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be like every other basic bitch out there, because here's the thing. I'm not like everyone else. I'm very unique. I have my own life. I have my own experiences that got me here. I have my own understandings, perspectives, knowledge bases, like all these things that tie into it. And then just the previous life experience of, at the end of the day, there are some people that just suck, and you got to stop trying to worry about making everyone fucking love you, because one, it's never going to happen. Two, stop trying to appease everyone, because some of those people that you're working so hard of appeasing are actually really talking a lot of shit behind your back.
Truthfully.
So when you stop caring about what's around you and you stop caring about the environment that you're trying to control so much that, let's be honest, you're not going to. So just focus on you, be yourself, and then that energy is going to attract a lot more people. And then when I'm funny doing my shit in the gym, I don't see people going like, oh, well, this fucking guy, like all this shit. It's like, no, they're actually laughing. They actually come and talk to me. And then I get a lot of people come up to me in the gym, say, yo, I see your content all the time. It's awesome that you're doing that. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable at the gym, because if I can see you doing that, I can just go use a piece of equipment.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, cool, bet. But again, like that's why I got to that point where I just don't give a shit anymore.
Yep.
But then that's also the other thing too, is I feel that a lot of people, they get very scared of asking for help, because there is this this idea that everyone is out there for themselves and they don't want to see anyone else succeed. Like, yes, there is going to be a percentage of people that are going to be douchebags about it, but I'd say for the vast majority of influencers and coaches that I know, which is
they're super
you could go and you can go talk to absolutely anyone. The only ones that are going to be douchebags are the ones that have shitty ass businesses anyways.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't ask them for their help regardless.
Or shitty ass personalities to begin with.
I guarantee you right now, I bet right now, I guarantee it. If I messaged Alex Hermosi and he read my message and he actually just read it, and he had time, he'd probably acknowledge it.
Yep.
If I asked him a simple question like, hey man, so I saw your video about this, I have a question about this, what can you just explain this a little bit more?
Yeah.
Guaranteed if he saw that, he would actually do it.
Yeah, and if he actually had time, he would respond.
Yeah.
I
I
think
have
so, too.
my one friend, my one homie, Christian Flainer. He's like 1.3 million followers on Instagram, but yet he'll go out of his way to help you. If someone messages him like, "Hey man, I'm just struggling with like a lat raise," he'd be like, "Oh yeah, just do this, this, and this. There you go." And he'll gladly do that. And he has 1.3 million followers, but people won't ask because they think that just because it's someone that they see online, they're going to be an asshole.
Yeah.
When they're not. And I think that's the biggest problem a lot of people have struggled with. And again, what video was I watching? It was a reel, and it was this CEO, and he was a billionaire. And I think the question is like, if you could go back and you could tell your younger self the best piece of advice you could, what would that be? He literally said, I would go ask for help from someone who's experienced. Because a lot of times people are there to help you. They will gladly give you help. It's when you ask for handouts, that's what they hate.
Yeah.
You ask for help, they'll guide you. Ask for a handout, they'll tell you go fuck.
Yeah.
Because no one gave us handouts, but they gave us guidance. No one's going to give you a handout, but they'll give you guidance.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say more times than not, people are more willing to give you help. And that was honestly my mistake with gym number 1. And I call it gym number 1, not that I have a second one. I'm gonna go for the second one for sure. But gym number 1, like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Had I actually asked for help at 20 years old, by the way, had I asked for help at 20 years old when I should have asked for help at 20 years old, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm. And like,
that's the biggest fuck up.
It is a 100%. Fuck up, but then that's like a failure to see the lesson you could have learned at that time and gone to ask for help. Because at the time, you kept doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. You kept on trying to make a correction, continue failing. But even though you were trying different things, you kept making the same mistake of not asking for help.
Yeah.
So even though you're trying different things, you're still doing the same action, expecting different result. So that's why it's really important for us to understand how are all these things different from each other in terms of discomfort, failure, and giving up. What we need to understand is that discomfort is different. It's steps that you're taking and you're navigating through an unfamiliar environment that's uncomfortable because you don't know what's going to come. But you also become familiar with this, and you will become more comfortable in that environment where you can now have a bigger picture, see a bigger perspective, and start noticing things coming. Whereas failure is when you take an action, but then you do not receive the outcome that you're wanting. So you got to go back to the drawing board and find another way. This is where a lot of people really fail at failing. When you fail at failing, then that's where you fuck up. But when you fail, don't look at that as what you're doing and on the path that you're on and the steps you're taking are wrong. It's you took a wrong step on a stone that wasn't stable and you slipped.
Yeah.
So now you got to go back and you're like, okay, I took that direction. That stone sucked. I'm going to stay here. Instead of taking that way, I'm going to go this way. Oh, shit. And you found a new stone. So because you learned from your failure and you didn't fail your failure, that's where you're able to now make that progression. Now, giving up now quitting is not giving up. Okay. Something you got to understand. Quitting is not giving up. Giving up is giving up. Quitting something can be one of two things for two different reasons. We'll talk about that here in a sec. Giving up is admitting that you do not want to continue. You do not want to continue on the path that you're on because you cannot deal with the emotional burden that comes with the ebbs and flows of the goals that you're going for. So whether you're building a business, those uncomfortable moments where and again, this goes back to the whole podcast, why people ought to fail, right? Is they'll post, no one follows their shit, so then they just give up. Just like how a fitness coach will post, no one applies for their program. They say, no one wants to work with me. The leads are dried up and I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
No, that's not the same thing. You're giving up because you're not making those corrections. You need to make the corrections so that way you can now see those progressions. So giving up is you admitting that you are just you're defeated. You don't
Yep.
want to continue anymore. You don't want to make the corrections. You don't want to learn from mistakes and be uncomfortable anymore. And you want to revert back to those places of comfort,
Mm,
even though they were just uncomfortable to begin with. So
yep.
this is where we need to understand the difference. And not knowing the difference between these can really cause a lot of people to, number one, not achieve their goals and then not excel in their journey. So many can't. Kev, when you look at business owners, you look at people on fitness journeys, or people even at the nine to fives, when they can't deal with the emotional toll of things, how does that now take a huge impact on their journeys if they're going to be successful or not?
Yeah. Um, so the question is, if people can't deal with the emotional things that come with it, how does that take a toll on everything?
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at it this way. Um, Man, the question is so packed with so many things.
I know there's a lot of
The
moving
the,
parts that
the
comes
answer
with
is so
this.
packed with so many things. Whenever you can't deal with something emotionally, I think ultimately, like, it also affects other people around you. Um, I gave some advice this weekend, and my advice was, whenever you walk around to someone, I'm not gonna say who or anything like that. If you let everything in your day to day life make you outwardly frustrated. Okay, so the example is, if you're walking around and let's say you have a roommate, okay, and you live with this roommate. Let's say roommate like me, we're very positive. Okay, let's just put it in perspective. You're a very positive dude, always smiling, always energetic. Okay, and sometimes we got to chill and things like that, right? We're just kind of hanging out. But I would say that in your house, you're probably not walking around like, fuck, I got to do the dishes. Fuck.
Well, sometimes.
Yeah, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, fuck, I got to do it. Like,
Yeah.
fuck, I got to do work. Fuck, I got to shower. Ah, my dog. Ah, so and so. Ah, you know what I'm saying? And then you have a roommate, and the roommate hears this all day long. And they hear you, fuck. I think it affects everything around you, affects your surroundings. Where people, just like a couple episodes back, your words were, if you're fucking negative all the time, no one wants to fucking be around you. And no one wants to fuck with you. And that's part of that. Like, if you don't learn how to deal with things emotionally, everything else around you will start to either move away from you, or it will become the same product you're pushing out, which is that frustration. So, learning how to deal with things emotionally will affect you in a workplace. Business and entrepreneurs, no one's going to want to do business with you is if every time they talk to you, it's like right now, you and I are putting something together. We're trying to put together our mentorship and everything. Um, but when we have to do things and when we bounce ideas back and forth, neither one of us are like, shit, fuck. You know what I'm saying? No one's ever like that. In your 9 to 5, if you were the person that every time a boss came and asked you, and you, every time you were asked to do something, you were like, okay, all right, I'll get to it. Right now, like all these things, right? The manager is going to eventually pull you into the office and say, hey, like, what's going on? Every time we ask you to do something, you seem very frustrated. Are you just unsure of what's going on or what? In a relationship, same thing. Somebody's going to be like, dude, am I annoying? So if you don't learn how to deal with these things emotionally, things will move away from you that are good, and things that aren't good for you are going to enter the room.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that kind of comes with the whole then learning how to quit and then learning how to give up. If you're outwardly frustrated and can't deal with emotions, you will deviate to quitting more things more often because that is the negative entering. If you learn how to deal with your emotions, you will learn how to quit things without destroying your path to your goals, which is the positive, right? So if we can kind of put it into, it's like, giving up is the negative, quitting, learning how to quit is the positive, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. It's like the way you learn how to deal with things emotionally is going to ultimately decide how positive things or negative things enter your life.
Yeah, straight up. And again, like we gotta really look at how even in just one, you can have so many good things going on in your life, but if you have one thing that is continuously causing you this distress and you cannot deal with the consistent, like whether it's a letdown, consistent failures, consistent
Hmm.
redirects, and
Hmm.
you can't persist through these uncomfortable areas, and you can't essentially deal with them, these are now going to now spill over into other areas of your life. You're going to be affected to where you don't even want to go to the gym and you're
Yep.
pissed off and you can't even focus. You're going to take your work home with you. And that's why, like, a lot of husbands or people that work really high stress jobs, they have lots of issues at home because when they say that they bring their work home with them, it has nothing to do with like them actually bringing their work home with them. It's bringing the mental distress and the unsolved emotional stresses that you're allowing to affect you that now projects, whether it's into your spouse, your kids, your friendships,
Hmm.
whatever it is. These are all going to now spill over. Same thing if your work is going sorry, if your friendships are going really hard, or you have a
Hmm.
Kevin, if you
Low Sierra
for
that
that
whole
whole
day.
day or until you two figure that shit out, that's going to affect your mental state, which is going to spill over into your
Yeah,
production at work, which will
100%.
spill over into your workouts. And same type of thing. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you hate what you see reflecting back at you and you rip yourself apart
Very much.
emotionally before you start the
Yeah.
day, you're going to be in a really shitty mood. So now that
Shitty
meeting
mood for
that
the
you
rest of the
have
day.
at 8 a.m. with your colleagues, you're going to be a lot more, let's say, jagged, to where you're not going to be as open to collaboration, figuring things out. You're going to be a lot
Exactly.
more standoffish, and
Exactly.
now that's going to now push your manager to the point where they pull you into the office and be like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you?
What the fuck is going on?
So now these areas are now affecting. So if you cannot deal with the emotional toll of what's going on, you can't persevere through this, then you need to either one, figure out a way that you can now deal with these things, but also understand no matter what journey you're going on,
Yep.
this area discomfort is so that way you can grow into being comfortable in that area. You can't revert back to familiar areas where you're comfortable in but uncomfortable, because you're not going to make an uncomfortable area comfortable that you were never happy with in the first place.
Yeah.
That's like going to the job you fucking hate every day and going like, I'm going to love this job today, but
Yeah.
let's get real here, it's not. So now when we look at now understanding the emotions that we go through, now it's also understanding that when we fail and we don't see the lessons we learned in the actions that we took, in order to make the in order to make the corrections that we need to continue, so that we can make those progressions, is going to be really, really hard to see if you don't actually look for the lessons in your failures. So
Yeah.
you need to be able to, again, not fail in your failure, but persevere in your failure and find what you did wrong. Just like riding the bike and you lean too far to the left and you fell. Now you're going to lean a little bit more to the right and hopefully you stay straight. You fell again and now you're going to balance in the middle and now you ride straight. Now you got to
Yeah.
correct the steering so you know where to go. But regardless, the same
Yeah.
kind of thing. So where like me and Kevin, like we see a lot of people that do fail all the time.
All
But
the
then
time.
we see those that persevere through it and find success, and those that allow them to now fall even further when they
The
don't see
best
that.
part about I think being a owner of something nowadays, a business owner of something nowadays, is that you can be a business owner of anything nowadays. Like anything. And you can get attention with doing almost anything if you do it long enough. So, um, speaking on Alex Hermosi, I thought of a skit that you could do about Alex Hermosi to kind of make fun of him a little bit, because every time
I don't know if I want that smoke.
no. So I love Alex Hermosi. For everyone's listening here, Alex Hermosi
Yeah,
is
here, why don't
awesome.
you just
But
go call out Joey Swole too, and then just make it a really
everybody
good
has
one.
things that they do. I think everybody has things that they do that could be tweaked into a little bit of a joke, right? Like The Rock and Kevin Hart, they're obviously very professional at what they do, but they poke fun at each other.
Oh
So every
yeah.
time I watch an Alex Hermosi video, he's like, "If it doesn't matter back in the Stone Age, I don't care about it." I'm like, literally every video is like, if it wouldn't have mattered whenever you were fucking peddling stones and sticks, why would it matter today? For almost every business advice, I feel like, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So a skit would be perfect. It's like we could do this into the podcast. Like, oh, people aren't listening. Well, it's because podcasts wouldn't have mattered back in the Stone Age. So move on to the next thing.
There'll be a clip of us just handing sticks and rocks.
So, anyways, one of the videos, and I think it was like someone in the same video, was that in the United States nowadays, 10% of people in the United States are business owners, right? Um, and from there, most of those same entrepreneurs in that 10% are going to fail. So I would say push it even further when you think about, oh, I'm a business owner, I'm part of the 10%. Yes, but push it even further and say 10% of 10% are the ones that have something decent. And then push it even further. So getting your LLC, opening up your doors, having a brand and announcing your brand, now you're in the 10%. Now, once you're in the 10%, consider that 10% 100%. Okay. And in that 10%, that new 10%, okay, of business owners, now consider yourself, how do I get to the 10% of the people who have a successful business, whether it's making $4,000 a month, $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month, if you do it part-time, full-time, or whatever. Then from there, once you make a living out of it, once you make it full-time, then how can you get into a new 10% of like who makes 10 grand a month and continue doing that and pushing that versus some people, I feel like they're like, oh, I'm going to be a business owner. Um, and then they open up their doors, but then they don't realize that it's going to be a while before you can become full-time in it. And that being a part of that initial 10% of I'm a business owner now isn't the end point. You cannot get there and just be like, oh, I'm a business owner, things are going to work out. You have to continue going. And then that new goal is, how can I get to the 10% that become full-time with this? And then now that I've gotten to the full-time 10%, how can I become the 10% that like feeds their family with this? Like, that's different, right? Full-time and feeding your family is different, I think. So you have to continue to, again, improve. To go back to the quote from earlier, the same person that you were at, or the same person that you were at 20, you cannot be at 50. Otherwise you wasted, all these years of your life. So every time you go into a new category, you have to change your way of life, right? So if you open up a business, you can no longer fuck around and do a bunch of random things. Um, and not put effort into your business. And then when you go full time, now you have to put yourself into a new seat, which may be CEO seat, which comes with other uncomfortable things, right? And then when you start to delegate even more and let go, then that's different uncomfortable level, right? So if you think of it as levels and steps, then I think people will learn how to emotionally deal with things and be uncomfortable. What are you looking at?
Just some random dude comments said, let's get a real job. I'm like, well, I guess a real job is, I guess, working for someone else and building their job, I guess, Eddie. But I'd prefer to work for myself where I can make a lot more and do some better. Oh, you just said, let's get a real job.
What does that
like,
mean?
I don't know. So
Let's hear
I'm
it.
gonna, yeah, Eddie. I'd love to hear what a real job is, my man. Is this a 9-to-5 job? Is this something where it's like online jobs and careers aren't real and we still need to do brick and mortar? I'd love to know what a real job is, because if a job is just like something we got to go work in an office, to me that sounds like prison. So I guess if prison is a job, then I guess that's a real job. Yeah. So anyway, well, besides that fact, anyway, by the way, y'all should take note of that. Some things that you'll just see. So when we give up, it's normally due to the fact that your mind gave up before you're actually going to make it. So when this happens, a lot of the times it's people are going to give up, and like this happens in the gym too, but people are going to give up mentally 1,000 times before their body actually will. So
same.
1,000 times before you actually truly come to a halting fail. Because even in a failure, you can always persevere into success. In fitness. Yep. So that's just in fitness. Now, same thing with business. When you are going to give up because you're not getting clients, or you're going to give up because your videos aren't getting views anymore, or you're going to give up because you haven't been able to book a call in a couple of weeks because of X, Y, and Z reason. all these things that we give up is because we mentally give up the fact that we do not want to overcome this challenge, and we are tired of having to overcome things because you're just not convicted enough in yourself and having integrity in yourself to believe in yourself that you can truly make it work. Because realistically, Kevin, like building a business or getting through something or losing weight or whatever, at the end of the day, we've all done things way harder. We've all gone through things way harder. So why is it different? You've already accomplished something harder than accomplished. You're good. We've gone through a lot of more mental distressing things than not seeing a pound come off the scale, seeing a client sign up, not seeing your business break a record every month that you've been building. Like, this is ridiculous. You can't expect to be perfect all the time. You can't expect to everything all the time. There's a reason why there's ebbs and flows in absolutely everything you do. It's because you go up and you're going to go down. You're going to go up and you're going to go down a little bit. But every time you go down a little bit, that regression is just a platform so that way you failed, so that way you couldn't step up, so you hit a failure, regress back to the drawing board so you can now take that step up after you make the correct change. Or you ask for fucking help because you don't know what to do, and instead of giving up, you ask for help. And I feel like, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, this is where a lot of entrepreneurs and just, and people in general on any type of journey fail.
Yeah. So how does this apply to everybody listening, which is the kind of the tie-in question here, is kind of like my story at the beginning. This doesn't have to just apply to entrepreneurs. This doesn't just have to apply to business owners. It can apply to your fitness, right? Getting up 30 minutes sooner to make the food that you want, so that way you have success in your health. And then getting up 30 minutes earlier, so that way if you do have a 9 to 5 that you have to get to, then you can build a relationship with maybe the people who do get there earlier, have to get there earlier because of management things, and you build up relationships, you network a little bit more in your place of work. Okay. Where small tweaks can help you build up emotional scar tissue, if you will, right? To where it's like, oh, before it was like, dude, I can't wake up at 5 a.m. I have to wake up at 8, right? But maybe the people who wake up at 5 a.m., they did an hour early, and then they had another reason to wake up an hour earlier, and after doing it for so long, then they're like, fuck it, I'll just wake up at 5 a.m. I don't know. I'm not an early morning person like that always. There are other things in my life that I like to do, in little increments like that help me emotionally deal with things. It doesn't have to be just the analogy of like waking up early for you. It could be several different things. But if you can do small little incremental things consistently over time, I think that this emotional discomfort that you feel on occasions will kind of relieve itself if you take those little small steps. Again, fitness, waking up early to feed yourself a little bit better, 9 to 5, waking up a little bit earlier, getting there at the same time as your manager, checking in sooner. I remember when I worked at LA Fitness, my VP would actually always compliment one of the other training directors at another gym. Like, I was a training director at one gym, there was a couple others, and you can see when you log into the Skype Messenger on the computers. And Joe, his name was Joe, my VP, would compliment one of the other train directors because when Joe gets there at 8:30 and we're supposed to be there at 9, he can see who's already logged in. And there was one personal trainer who's always logged in at the same time he was. So I started getting there 15 minutes earlier. I didn't need to get there at the 30-minute mark early. Like 15 minutes earlier was just enough. And then eventually I got a little compliment thrown in there, but not as much as the other dude. Maybe because I didn't care about staying at LA Fitness for forever. And the other dude actually ended up becoming a VP for a little bit of time. He ended up quitting. His name's Cameron. So he's no longer a VP for LA Fitness. I don't know for what reason, but nonetheless, like for him, I think that mattered. You see what I'm saying? So he ended up getting the promotion. So he ended up getting what he wanted. And I think him showing up to 30 minutes earlier and getting compliments from Joe consistently, like, hey, Cam is showing up earlier. He's always on the thing. I'm not saying that you guys have to show up earlier, but I did notice this kind of thing. I think it's cool. And guess what? He got the promotion.
Yeah.
So for him, I know that the VP position was like an 8 to 10 grand position, so it was a 6 figure position. Um, obviously, like I have other things in my life that I try to build that way as well. But for him, that was probably a solid move. You know what I'm saying? Was it the 30 minutes that gave him the promotion? I don't know, but I think it was a factor nonetheless. You know what I'm saying? Factor nonetheless. So for things like that, for you guys working on 5s, I don't know. If you guys have to check in on time somewhere, I think if there's a manager logged in, they're gonna see who's logged in too. I think. Just like if you have to go to the office, they're gonna see who's drinking coffee early. Entrepreneurship, if you want business partners, how's your attitude? Are you always huffing and puffing? If you have relationships, are you always huffing and puffing because your wife or your husband asks you to do something? You know, if you want a better health for yourself, are you literally always huffing and puffing? Because if you literally are always huffing and puffing, you gotta get in shape. You gotta get in shape. You gotta wake up earlier and have a better breakfast. I don't know.
Do something.
So
Go for a
so
walk.
that's how it relates, I would say.
But you know what, everyone? So at the end of the day, like understanding the differences between these three things is going to be super, super important. So then that way you can start seeing the flags, start seeing the indications. So that way you can start making the right corrections or just know that you're on the right path. But the thing that you need to remember is that there's always a lesson to be learned in every failure that you have, and areas of discomfort will turn into comfort as soon as you become familiar with it. And
Yep.
then giving up just means that you're quitting because you don't want to continue on. So, three very different things all follow a lot of the same emotional path. So, for any of you that are listening here today that know a little bit this more applies to you, please shoot us a DM, message us. We gladly like to help you out with that. And if
Yeah.
you have any other questions, whether it is about your health or your businesses or whatever the hell it is that you want to start leveling up, let us know so we can do a podcast on it.
Yeah.
Anything
Absolutely.
else, Kevin?
No, that's it. Other than that, for everybody who's listening, Corey and I, for somebody's little comment of here, let's get a real job. You know what's cool about this is that we've employed people and we're actually going to employ people. So this is a job shout out. Corey and I
Yeah,
will be
5.
looking for some people here soon to take on a couple positions as a work from home position. So if you guys are interested in working from home, let us know because we will be putting out some applications here soon. And yeah, if you just again, if you have a full-time job right now and you want a little side gig to do, our real job employs people. So with this real job that we have, we would love to have you guys a part of this really, really, really real job. Okay, so if you guys want a little side gig, 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week, let us know. Shoot us a message. We're not going to take you away from your job or anything like that, but that you currently have, but we are employing other people with this real job that we have. So appreciate you guys listening
Hashtag real
today.
job.
Appreciate you guys listening today. Pod-A-Holics episode 14.